Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Legends on the Rise, where we dive deep into creative journeys of artists from all walks of life. I'm your host, Josh, and I'm here to share candid conversations with some of the most passionate and driven content creators out there. Whether you're just starting or you've been on this path for a while, we're here to talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. From music to gaming to life as an entertainer, this is your spot to learn, grow, and be inspired. So if you've ever felt the pull to create and turn your passion into something bigger, you're in the right place. This is Legends on the Rise. So, I know that's
Nice.
it's a
That
long
was awesome,
intro,
dude.
but
Keep it up. Keep it up. I like that.
thanks. So, usually I ask a few questions to my friends about their journeys and ask them to kind of like introduce themselves to the audience. So, you want to tell people what you do and what your name is and how long you've been doing what you're trying to do?
Uh, yeah, name's Chris. Well, I've been writing for a while. I think that's some enjoyment, a hobby I have, just being creative, creating my own like worlds outside of the world, kind of fantasy worlds.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy that, and I really enjoy movies. So I think that's just been my inspiration is from movies and exploring just the creative background, what's behind the curtain, how they just write a script. That's just what I'm doing right now. And it's been about a year since I've been starting to write scripts. And so far, I got a good one, but don't want to say anything about it.
Don't want to say anything too soon. Don't want to spoil it.
No, I got to work on it still before I can even say anything about it. That's the thing. But I got an idea and I'm going to go for it.
That's fair. That's fair. It is a bit too early to say. I know you don't want to spill the beans yet. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a writer that you had to overcome?
Consistency.
Mm,
That is a big thing with writing, or I think any art or craft. You have to be consistent. You have to have a focus and an intention every time. And I just didn't have that intention. I wanted to do it, so I just throw paint to a wall is the saying, like just throwing things to the wall, see if it'll work.
see like
And
what
it never really
sticks.
worked. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. But it's being consistent and pushing through like the failures. You can say they're failures, but you can be proud that you did it. So it's like just being appreciating what I did before, but improving upon it now. It's like, all right.
Speaking of failures and things that you improved on, what was like a golden moment for you? Like something that you achieved actually after overcoming some of those failures, and you're like, yes, I finally did such and such. Like, what was one of those moments for you?
I think it was like before COVID, it was like 2019, 2018. I don't have the documents anymore, but like you got to just write them from memory again.
Mm.
But I had written like a giant lore of this fantasy world, and I think that's what got me over that hurdle to a point where I was like, oh, okay, there's the lore. All right, then it makes sense. Then it's like built off of that. Then it goes from there. And I have written drawn maps of the world. I can describe everything just because I know the name. It's like in the head. And it just worked. That was my golden passion. And I was like, okay, I think I want to write.
Nice. So, can you share a specific failure or setback you've experienced when writing and what you learned from that experience? Like you were saying, consistency was something that you needed to work on and something that was kind of holding you back, like being more consistent with your writing. What was one setback you've had that, in general, that you kind of just had to learn from that experience and overcome that experience, like outside of consistency, that maybe even helped improve your writing or your future stories and projects, just to build on the consistency thing?
Yeah, so I guess like my many failures were kind of like shotgun stories or shotgun
Mm.
writing. I would just like write, just go on a spiel and do about maybe 5 pages, and then I couldn't really think of anything after a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is something, and I kind of just built off the writing style that I've developed, and just reading certain writers, it's like, okay, that's kind of how they started. Like, one influence that made me realize like my failures can mean improvements and they can actually be inspirations for later on if I look back on it. It's like Philip K. Dick. Like he did a lot of that kind of stuff. So he knew what failure was. A lot of fantasy writers and sci-fi writers know. So it's like it makes me think failures, yeah, they're there. They really set me back, made me think like I can't do writing. But then I would read other authors and I'd be like, oh, okay, it's like that's normal. Cool.
Yeah, like everyone has like those days like where they feel burnt out or feel like they've hit like a wall and they can't get past that.
Yeah, the walls, damn, that's pardon my French. That's just like that's the thing, man. The wall gets everyone.
So we've talked about failures and successes. So what are some inspirations or people that inspire you to write? Like you have a top five list of people that you'd probably recommend or that just inspired you in general to write in general? Any authors or
Yeah,
books?
yeah. Like one person I said was Philip K. Dick.
Mm-hmm.
He's up there. He's like in the top three. I think he would say I would say like second or first. Then man, there's a lot. I just had the name in my head. Fitzgerald's pretty good. He's like, number five, I guess. H.P. Lovecraft is interesting. Always get little inspirations from him. So he's like fourth. Man, first, I would say Michael Crichton. He wrote Jurassic Park, Congo, Lost World. I mean, there's a lot. But yeah, he'd be number one. Can't really think of anybody else. Oh, Stephen King, definitely is number three.
Would you consider any of the mainstream people like Brian Herbert or J.R. Tolkien? I think that's his name. Would you consider any of them or
Oh, Tolkien? Yeah, I would definitely consider him in the top 10.
Brian Hubert who wrote Dune, I believe, or maybe that's his son. I'm thinking about,
Uh,
but
Frank Dune, Frank
yeah,
Herbert.
yeah, that's the guy, Frank.
Yeah, dude, he's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really you get really get immersed into it. So
Mm,
yeah, but yeah, that's my top five. I would say like they all have a different, distinct style to them,
mm.
but they all hit the same note for me. That like consistency and a deep presence in their writing. It's like, oh yeah, they know what they're talking about.
What trends do you see shaping the future of writing, and how are you as a writer adapting to them, you think?
I think writing, the one I look at the most is the film aspect, and a lot of them are kind of very quick to the point kind of movies now. Some of them they can extend, like say Dune. Those are great films, but they're extended, right? Or Lord of the Rings, things of that nature. But I feel like a lot of like horror movies are just getting like they're cutting it down, getting to the point, like not dragging it. Um, even like action films like John Wick. And I guess it's like something you have to really adapt to is like the just like a stream of consciousness kind of mentality of like it's just always going. It's like it never stops, and that's kind of what real life is. So it's kind of with my writing on my script, I'm trying to figure out the little inconsistencies that create the big moments in the chaos, and then it just grows and grows, but it goes quickly. It's kind of something you have to get out and like used to if you do in film, I guess. Still working on it, but now it's like kind of clicking, and I have to be more quick with some scenes. Mm.
What do you think about films like Megan? Because we were talking about how horror films in general are starting to get quickly to the point. They're not adding all the extra fluff and stuff. And I noticed like films like Megan are like an hour and a half versus movies that were like 2, 3 hours long in length. So, or even like franchises that keep going on, like the Scream series. It's on its 10th film, I believe. I don't know if they're doing an 11th. They
Just
may do.
about, yeah.
Yeah. So like what what do you think about series like that just keep going on and on versus series like Megan that about an hour and a half and maybe not as scary as like some of its predecessors in the genre?
That's a good question. I think with Scream, it makes fun of itself. It has a lot
Mm,
of fourth wall breaking from the first movie. It still does it to this day. And I think it's relevant to today's society of like slashers and horrors. And I think that's what makes it so famous. And say like Halloween, they're gonna make another Halloween. It's not gonna do good. It didn't do good before. They're revamping it maybe for
yeah.
the seventh or eighth time now. And I don't see any Jason. Where's Friday 13th, man? Give him some love.
Where's Friday the 13th? I
And
mean,
Megan, I didn't see it actually, so I don't have any comment on it.
I saw about half of it. I thought it was interesting, but I was consistently comparing it to older horror films in the back of my mind and ones that are not really too old but not too new either. Like I guess it's kind of old if you compare it to Scream, like the Saw franchise. Like
That was our slasher
yeah.
of our generation. So yeah, that was the
So
big movie to see. And they just made a 10th one, right? Or like a 12th one, whatever it was.
I think it was I don't want to say a
I think it
ninth.
was double digit at least now.
I want to say it was a 10th. I really do. I feel
I
like
think it was 10. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't
So
know how that can do it. I mean, they got a formula, they just cracked it. And it's kind of like it's like a little drug, man. It's like a dopamine rush for people now if they are into that. It's like, oh, you just
yeah.
gotta gravitate to the what people want. I think that's how they keep consistent. And Megan, yeah, I've heard good things, but nobody talks about it anymore. So
Well, I brought it up only because someone posted a clip on social media of apparently Megan getting a second movie in 2025 that she's coming
okay,
back.
okay. I mean, sure,
So I was
why not?
wondering, I was like, really? It's getting a sequel. I was like,
Mm,
was the first one that good to deserve it?
I
But then
don't know.
again, but then again, we're talking like in regards to things that maybe like B-rated horror film, right? That people love because it's like a cult classic fan favorite. Like even Five Nights at Freddy's is apparently getting a trilogy, and I didn't think the first movie was as good as like the video games that it was based on. But apparently it did well enough to get a pretty decent following. And looking
Yeah.
back, I feel like it'll probably be a fan favorite, like cult classic, like it was so bad, but it was so good type thing, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like looking back at it, like that was so bad when it came out, but I want to watch it again.
I get you. I
Like,
get you. Yeah.
yeah. Hey guys, sorry for interrupting. Just wanted to talk about my very first book, Spark of Madness. Chances are you're probably watching this because you want to be a content creator and an influencer and you don't know how. This book tells you how. Gives you simple steps that you can apply to your everyday life, maybe things you haven't considered, and it has a few stories about my up and coming rise to becoming, well, a content creator and give you that spark of madness. Hopefully this helps. It's available now on Amazon. And without further ado, back to the show. I feel like it's gonna
He's
be
like
one
that.
of those. Yeah. Because they're apparently making a second one and a third one for that too, with the dude who played Scooby Doo in the original 2001. I can't remember his name, but he's a famous actor. Dang, what was his name? The guy who played Shaggy in Scooby Doo. I can't remember his name.
Oh, I forget his name, and he was in Scream 1.
Yeah, yeah. But I can't.
Man, I can't
Ah,
remember his name.
his name
But yeah,
is
he's coming back. Okay.
yeah. He played the main horror villain role in that Springtrap.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and he even said the famous line in the game where Springtrap's like, "I'll be back. I always come back." That line.
Oh,
So
that's right. He was in that movie. Oh crap.
yeah,
Oh. And then
yeah.
you got
So
Corey X Kenshin, bro.
yeah. So there
You
you
got a lot
go.
of people in that movie. They said it's gonna be a scary movie. Like actually like not so goofy like how it was with the kid. Like it's actually they're gonna try and get the R rating for the second one.
Oh yeah, yeah. Have you seen the first one?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, premiere night, like a Friday, and it was like I cheered with everybody in that theater for Corey. I was like, yeah.
Have you ever played the games or like seen the gameplays for them, or were you like, they're all right?
I beat the first one when it was big, that when
Yeah,
you could get it on your iPhone or Android on the
yeah,
store.
yeah.
First did that, I got it, I beat it. Then I got the second one, and I just couldn't beat that one. That one was
To be fair, they took that one up a huge like bump from just looking at a camera screen and like being like, where are they gonna pop out from? Where are they gonna pop out
you
from?
gotta like look at
But
everything.
yeah, didn't they have like these vents or something, or is that the third one? I think that's the third one where
Yeah,
they had
there's
the
vents in the second one that you have to light up on the
yeah,
side.
yeah, and then you had to watch out for Springtrap coming from the back door or something like that, I think, or something crazy.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was crazy. But what I liked about that is like the lore. And you were talking earlier about sci-fi and fantasy writing as it pertains to movies and books. What do you
yes.
think about yeah, like what do you think about it within the video game franchise, like the writing in games like Five Nights at Freddy's or even sci-fi for games like Cyberpunk? And apparently they're even doing a Dune game at some point as well, like an exploration open world. You,
Yeah, I heard about that.
well, I have high hopes for it just because I saw the graphics in this one compared to the original Dune video game, which I'm like, okay, the original is trash. But looking at the trailer previews for the open world one, I'm like, this kind of seems like it has potential, especially if you've
Mm,
seen games like Star Wars The Old Republic, which was a pretty massive open world game for its time that was in the
yeah,
similar genre. And that was pretty big. And even today, a lot of people still play it despite the backlash it's getting for dated graphics. So, what do you think
yeah.
about the Dune game or even just writing in general for video games like and the turnaround for Cyberpunk writing wise, like story wise in that game?
Yeah, video game writing is a very touchy subject to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But if you really look at it objectively and subjectively at that point, like what is it trying to say to itself or what are you reading from it? Um, it's kind of rushed. Like for the most part, like there's some video games that I felt very disappointed by, and they were such a disappointment, I'll be honest, I don't remember the names.
I was just about to ask you, do you have any on mind that you're like, man, I really wanted to root for this game and then it just completely flopped. Like that wasn't what I thought it was gonna be at all. Like
I'm trying to remember. There used to be some big games that I was like, wow, it's gonna be great.
there was this one game that actually came out that was a fantasy. It was like a modern isekai minus the anime themes and minus getting hit by a truck and minus it didn't take place around a teenager, but an actual grown adult. This
Mm,
woman by the name of Frey, who lived in New York, was homeless, was always getting in trouble with gangs and with the law. And
mm,
the story was about her getting transported from New York to this fantasy land and being able to traverse around the land using these mystical powers because of this bracelet. And
mm,
the graphics were like next gen in quality, but
mm.
people and myself included, I pre-ordered the game. I got it for Steam because I was told it was gonna run for Steam, and when I got it, it didn't even like boot up. And when
It
I did
didn't
get
work.
no, and I thought it was just because the Steam Deck just couldn't handle it because they say that the Steam Deck's power was on par with maybe like the PS4 or PS4 Pro at most. Like if you really push the graphics, and I was like, it should be enough to run this game based on the fact it can play the new and improved Cyberpunk. So I was like, surely it could run this.
Surely.
Sure, right? And lo and, be-
No.
lo and behold, I couldn't get it to run at all. At first, it kept crashing. Then, when I finally got it to play, like where I could actually see the environment and the characters and move the characters around, and even lowered all the settings to like 30 frames per second and everything that you're supposed to.
Oh man.
The game was playing, but it was a huge glitchy delay.
Yeah.
Like it was just a huge glitchy delay and mess. And I thought it was just me because I had, like I said, I played on Steam Deck. So I was like, okay, maybe it's worked better for other people. But then other people are saying, bro, my system requirements are past what they say you need to play this. And I'm still having the same issues of someone who has the Steam Deck or like PS4 or whatever trying to play this game. So obviously
It's
they,
it's so rushed nowadays.
yeah, that was
The pain
something
is
there.
so terrible sometimes too. It's like they try too hard with the jokes and you're like, hey, just be quiet. Like, just stop. Stop talking. It's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Not
Uh,
like Devil May Cry, where it's like he made quick remarks. Like Dante was just like a sly silver tongue, like half human, half demon. So it was funny. And I'm sure there's other examples too. Like it's just Yakuza, for example. Like that's goofy, but it's still popular. The writing's still the same.
I felt
It's
that.
just, oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I felt that way about the Sly Cooper franchise. Like it was goofy, cartoony, and wild, but it was still a fun time, and the jokes worked for what they were, honestly. Like
And there's a consistency in the story.
true, true. It didn't really change them much. Although I will say the fourth one felt kind of weird. The Thieves in
Mhm.
Time or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was a bit mad that they left it on a cliffhanger. Like we're gonna make a fifth one, and then it just never came back. And I was like, wow, what? Why? How do you how do you bring Ratchet and Clank back when Sly was Ratchet and Clank before Ratchet and Clank? And it just
Yeah.
never got the same success.
Dang. I didn't know
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, like they came out around the same time, but I think Sly was like a couple years before, and it was one of my favorite games. But I also feel like it was one of those hidden gems. Like, unless you were there at that time, like you probably wouldn't
You
remember.
wouldn't get it, man.
Yeah, like it was kind of like the same with that other one, Tack and the Power of Juju. I don't know if you remember that
Oh
one, but
yeah, dude. Holy crap. Hack and the Power of Juju.
yeah,
What? Oh my God. You just
mind blown, mind blown, because
exploded deeply, dude.
that was a classic one too, but not many people talk about it. But writing wise on these games though, like the stories were basic, they were simple, but they captured your attention, right? Like they were those
Exactly.
games like where the writing, like you said, was consistent, the lore was consistent, the worlds were consistent, and the games didn't feel as rushed. It felt like they really took their time to make
Yup.
these.
Yup.
Yeah. And nowadays it's like whatever gets us the money the quickest. We'll do a pre-order, we'll do an open order for the game, for the movie, for the book, and then the story
Boom.
kind of falls flat. And it's like, bro, what we all doing? Like,
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, it's
How
crazy.
it is.
So, how do you prioritize your mental health and well-being in such a competitive and often stressful industry like writing and being an author, or just writing in general? Like, how do you like unwind from the mental stresses of it, especially like when you have kind of a mental block when you're creating the lore, the world, or the story?
Don't think about it.
You don't think about it.
No. Because if you think about it too much, don't think about it too much, as the line would go. I actually think that line every time in my head when I get too stressed about the ride. It's like, don't think about it too much. Just
Mm.
let it go. That's what I do. Like I play chess. So that like activates some thoughts in my mind that are just sitting there, but it's
Hmm.
been so much work, it got scrambled. So it gets me into a focus and just day by day. Sometimes it comes out, sometimes it doesn't. It's
Day
like the
by day.
wind. Yeah.
So, what are some future goals? Like, this will probably be my last question. What are some future goals that you have that you aspire to achieve with your writing that you're close to and would probably be like on your top three bucket list of things you absolutely have to do?
Finish a film script. Finish that by the end of this year. That's my goal. That's my top number one.
That's
Number
right.
two,
What's number two? Sorry, continue.
mm, no, I'm thinking like number two,
Oh,
I might continue writing some stories I haven't finished,
mm.
getting those published some way or another. And I don't know, writing something new, maybe a new script from the first one. So that's my three goals. And I try not to think about it like too much. And once it comes to me, it's like, oh, there it is. Boom. Then I write it. And I usually go on like a hour and a half, 2 hour like spree of just typing. I type really fast because of it, but when it's done, it's like, all right,
Like when
we'll
that
just
I
let it.
like when that idea hits, you just go for it. You just type it out as soon as possible. You're like, wait a minute, I just had this dream about this idea. I gotta go for I gotta get a pen,
Yeah.
paper, something, anything. Just hand me.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. A napkin.
Yes, exactly. Truly. Truly.
Yeah, I feel that. So, do you have any like last minute advice that you would like to give someone just starting out trying to be a writer, but they don't know where to start or like how to build a sustainable career from it, or even just in general, like getting started, but they're too afraid to?
I mean, don't even think about getting it out to the people first. Think about it getting it out of yourself
Mm,
for yourself, because that's how every writer should start. It should be a passion. Don't think of it as like fame, because at the end of the day, it's like then you're going to be structuring it towards that.
gotcha.
You're going to
So,
have that cookie cutter feeling when you're writing or
so
whatever you do in your passion. Just enjoy it
do it for
for
yourself.
yourself
Yeah.
before you think, okay, this is actually pretty good. And having like a lot of writing experiences with, say, role playing like D&D, I finally was like, okay, maybe I should give it a go. Like try and actually seriously try something. So that's where I'm at.
Nah,
And I
that's
think that's how everyone should try and do it if they're going to start.
that's real, especially on that D&D thing. Because I remember for the longest time, I said I was never gonna play D&D ever, and then you got me into it, and I was like, bro, why didn't anyone tell me this was this fun? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
This is it's like
it's fun.
you're actually in that world, man. Like, bro, no one told me that it was like that. I wish someone told me it was like that, but yeah,
Yeah,
like
man.
I just found out recently one of my college friends who I also interviewed, I think on the last episode before this one,
Okay.
they were telling me the same thing about how they had never played D&D before and they just recently started like a D&D group and like going to the
Mm,
group every week for like a
yeah.
session or two. And I was like, bro, like I didn't even know that. Like I just found that out about them. But like that was cool, like seeing there are more people who are getting into tabletops like that. Like I,
Yeah.
I feel like they're slept on. I feel like they're majorly slept on, man. Like,
That just makes me want to make a friend like weekly thing somewhere.
dude, I wish I honestly want to like lead one of my own. And I know I've been talking to you about doing one of my own one of these days, but
Yeah, man. I got people that are interested.
huh?
We've already talked about it. We already got a group. You just gotta set it up. And when you're ready, no need to rush it. You don't want to rush those kinds of things. Like that's why when I did the one I did during COVID with you, that was years of writing it. That was like two
Years
years
of
of
writing.
lore. That was 2 years of lore I wrote.
2 years? Oh my God, that's incredible. That's literally
It
incredible.
it was something that I wrote for myself because I was like, I dealt with a lot of things like stressors outside of my life. And I think that was what made me just really focus. I was like, yo, there is good, there is evil, there is an in between, there is always like all these chaoses going on, chaotic energy.
Mm,
And what do you do in that? And I was like, well, just focus. And I guess that's what made me focus so hard on the lore, just writing it, dude. Yeah, it was like 2 years of writing that stuff. And I had it on that old laptop from high school. I don't
wow.
think I had those docs anymore, man.
That sucks, man.
But
Like,
they're right here. I just gotta write it again.
well, at least you remember it. Like, I have two worlds that I'm working on with two different stories. I recently just revamped them, and I was telling you about this, I think yesterday or the day before that, where I'm trying to put them in the same universe now. And I barely remember all the lore. I remember one of the creatures I made in the fantasy medieval story that I originally had made.
Yeah,
But other than that, I don't remember all the magic systems and all the characters and their relevance. Like when I first started, I saw them so clearly, but unless I look at my notes now, I I can't do it. Like
yeah, exactly.
I gotta refresh my memory, I guess. But still, that's cool though. Like you've been working on this for 2 years, like for that campaign we did during COVID. That's crazy. two
Yeah,
years, man. That's
and I still have all the maps we did. I
oh
did
man.
everything, man. Like I'm thinking of one day just like figuring out how to like take a photo of all of them and then connect it and just like weird picture.
Into like
But
one giant like quasi Frankenstein map.
exactly.
Oh, dude, that's
because
gonna be
it's
awesome.
detailed. I mean, it's like there's so much. Looking at that map, I was like inspired by Tolkien. I was inspired by, Middle English, Old English, like Beowulf, like maps written and drawn in the 11th or 14th or 15th century England. That that's my style. I think that's what got me. And I was like, okay, let's write it.
Dude,
Let's draw it.
that's
Yeah.
literally incredible, man. Well, I won't hold you too long, and this thing's gonna kick us off in a bit, so I'm gonna attempt to wrap it up real quick. But thank you, man, for joining today on this episode of Legends on the Rise. I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate you
Thank
for
you.
talking a bit about um, your journey as a writer and the struggles you went through and the things you've learned, and even telling us about your inspirations and that fact about, again, I'm still stuck on this fact. It took you 2 years to come up with the lore for that campaign, and that story came out amazingly. Still one of my
Thank you.
favorites to this day.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks.
Appreciate that.
And to everyone out there for tuning into the stream, thanks for joining us today on Legends on the Rise. I hope today's conversation gave you a fresh perspective and inspiration to keep pushing forward on your creative journey. Remember, it's not always easy, but the highs and lows are all part of the process. So, until next time, keep creating, stay true to your vision, and most importantly, if you got a dream or a goal, just go for it. All right, I'm signing out. Take care.